Welcome to Women of the Wild,
where education and opportunities are key.
And friendships are made to last a lifetime.
Did you get it?
You think we got him? You think we got him? We got him.
All right, Skylar, what do we got here?
We've got a nice looking rip off.
Oh, there she is. Woo! You dropped our great host.
Give me a hug.
Welcome back to Season 2 Women of the Wild podcast. We would like to first start off by thanking our title sponsors for the 2024 year. Atlantic Coral Enterprise, one of the largest import dealers in the world with excellent quality for hides, skulls, shells, and amazing gifts for friends and family or even your household. You can find them at AtlanticCoralEnterprise.com. RM Custom Called, multiple world championships from Main Street to Live Duck. American made, veteran owned. When you want to win on the stage or in the blind, we have you covered. Small shop, big sound. You can find them at rmcustomcall.com or on Instagram. We also have Rhino Land Safaris, providing exceptional quality with unmatched hospitality and cuisine, offering African safaris, a destination hunt for the avid rifle or bow hunter with some of the best trophy management South Africa has to offer. You can find them at rhinoland.co.za or on Facebook, Instagram.
Hey everyone, Andy Lehman here from ACC Crappie Sticks. Just want to let you know about our crappie baits and jig heads. We have a wide selection of the hottest colors and big eye crappie jig heads in the most popular colors and sizes. Check them all out at accrappiesticks.com. Thank you.
And now for today's episode, we hope you enjoy. Welcome back to Season 2 Women of the Wild. I'm your host, Felicia Marie, and I am here today with an extraordinary guest. I met this woman at the NWTF this year through a mutual friend, one of our fellow Women of the Wild girls, Hannah. And today I'm excited to announce that we have Ellen Spielis on with us. Some of you might know her on social media as Jean Ellen. Jean, how are you doing?
I'm doing well, thank you. I really appreciate the opportunity to come on and talk with you today.
I just realized I called you Jean. I'm sorry. You go by Ellen.
Usually, it's Jean Ellen if I'm in trouble. As long as you don't call me late for supper, I'm good.
That's my motto as well. I'm with you there. So when I say you're an extraordinary woman, you really are. Digging into you and having conversation with you, you are an avid outdoors woman, and you are so inclined to share your knowledge with other people. So I would love for you to tell our listeners kind of how it all started for you, like how you got into the outdoors and kind of what you're up to right now.
When I was first married to my husband, he would hunt deer. That's how we put meat on the table. And he would go out into the woods, and he would come home and he would tell all these stories. And they didn't have to be even big stories. They were, I saw this animal, or I saw this bird, or this happened. I had this owl fly at me, or, I heard this noise in the woods. And it just was, he always seemed so happy when he was telling those stories. So we were married for a few years, and we had several miscarriages. And I was like, okay, well, we're just going to do more things as a couple. We're going to go do these things. And this is what he loves. So I'm going to give it a try. So for a couple of years, I called him date nights, and I just went out and sat with him in the woods. And eventually, when he saw that I was going to persist in sitting with him, he's like, well, why don't you pick up a rifle, and why don't you go hunting? And I was like, oh, okay. And it was kind of a done deal from there. In 2009, we were in a car accident coming home from church, and everyone else walked away fine. We walked away, but then I started regressing because I had a back surgery, and it got to the point where I could not walk without a cane or a stick or something, or holding on to walls. And I went through a lot of medical therapies, I guess is what you would call them. And I was literally going to a doctor 4 days a week. It was either, pain management or physical therapy or swim therapy or something. And finally, we had 2 small children at the time, and I was like, I'm just sick of being away from home. So somehow during, the previous season, I had killed a buck with my crossbow, and I was just like, that's a long time to go from deer season to deer season. So what else is there to do? And I decided I was going to try turkey hunting. And I didn't know anything about it. Nobody I knew how to turkey hunt. So we went to the Harrisburg show. Every year I worked the Harrisburg show. And I went up to this table. I saw these guys working turkey calls. And I said, well, one of the guys standing there, he smiled and, said hi. And I was like, what's all this turkey hunting stuff about? And we've been very good friends to this day. Call him if I have turkey hunting questions. But he was trying to get me to use a mouth call. And I couldn't do it. He gave me this plain mouth call, and he said, walk around the show for a while and, soften it up in your mouth or whatever. And a couple hours later, I came back and I tried to do what he told me to do, but it sounded like Daffy Duck or something. We almost beat ourselves laughing, all of us. Like it was a hoot. And finally, this older gentleman, he walked up to me, he had mercy on me, I think it was, and he said, honey, here's a pot call, try this. And he showed me how to do it, and he goes, all I did was yelp, yelp, yelp. That's it. That's all I could do. And he's like, that's all you need to kill a turkey. And I didn't believe him. I thought, this is crazy. I'm spending this money. I don't know what I'm doing. Me and my oldest son at the time, he was 9, I decided we were going to buy things on clearance, decoys, hunting clothes, whatever. And all we had was a crossbow, and we were going to go out. So I did what I always do with deer. I started scouting. And lo and behold, even though I was in so much pain and it hurt to walk, walking on the uneven ground and following the little animal trails, I kind of put the pain in the back of my head and just kept going. And eventually doing this, a couple times a week on this property we had permission to hunt, it must have strengthened my core. And it got better and better and better and better. And I tell people all the time, turkey hunting kind of saved me. It kind of gave me back my mobility. It gave me back the ability to walk and strengthen me up where all the stuff I was doing just wasn't working. So, scouting and shed hunting, those are the things that I just had a passion for it. I love being lost in the woods. And after I walked through the woods and I was able to walk and do, me and my youngest, we went out turkey hunting. And it's the craziest story, but we killed this giant turkey in PA with just yelp, 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 and one of those little rubber gobble calls that you shake. And I couldn't even shake it. I couldn't even shake it well enough to sound like a turkey. So my 9-year-old would shake that gobble call, and I would go yelp, yelp, yelp in response to it. And it didn't seem like the gobbler was responding at all. And I texted my husband and I said, he's not coming. And he texted back, he's over here across the hill on the winery. He can't hear you, just be louder. And I will never forget that moment. I stood up in the blind and I stuck the pot call outside of the blind, and I was trying to be loud. And when I tried to do the yelp, 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 it came out sort of like screeching. And I sat back down in the chair, and I was so crushed because I thought, oh, I ruined this. I ruined it for my son. He's never going to get to see this turkey. And sure enough, I got a text message on my phone, and he was like, he's coming. And I couldn't believe he was coming. I was like, how do you know? And he's like, he just walked through your mom's yard. So this turkey had to come down off a hill in this winery, cross a creek, cross a 2-lane road, come up through my mom's yard, and walk, I don't know. I believe they said 1.5 miles as a crow fly, you know, like as he would walk. He came up this really big hill, made a 45-degree turn into the gas line where we were sitting, came right into the decoy, and I shot him with a crossbow. And I can't believe it, but it worked. Yelp, yelp, yelp. It worked, and it brought this turkey. We had no clue what we were doing, and we were just so pumped. And we went and told people about this story, and people were like, well, when you hear him gobble, you're supposed to just stop, you know. But we didn't know what we didn't know what we were doing. So I just kept talking to this turkey, and he kept talking to me. And when we took him to the taxidermist, he did not have one bug in his craw. The taxidermist was like, he never stopped. He didn't stop to eat. He just kept coming. So from there, it just went crazy, because my son decided he was going to learn how to use mouth calls. We went to Cabela's. We were telling people this story. There was a gentleman there, Roy Bennett. He just absolutely adored my son. He could make turkey calls with his mouth. He didn't even need a call. But this gentleman built my son mouth calls from the time he was 9 years old till, I think he may even still be doing it to this day. Ethan moved out a couple years ago. So made him use framed mouth calls, and the rest is kind of just like, it's just something we've done all of this time. I've been out a couple times with my youngest, and he's had success, but it's just not his thing. But my oldest is just, he loves hunting turkey, and he's just a machine, that one. But
Mama's just instilled it in him, huh?
You know, a lot of people some people will take their kids out, and the child is too young and it doesn't really enjoy it. Mine just wanted to know where the snacks were. By 8 o'clock, he said, it's time for lunch. She said, Mama, it's time for lunch. I said, sweetheart, it's 8 a.m. And he's like, really? So thank goodness I packed a lot of snacks. If you have boys, pack lots of snacks. But after that experience, and after seeing that turkey, he wanted to learn how to call. He wanted to talk to these birds. He learned how to do work with mouth calls, and he could work a mouth call and a pot call. And the following year, he went out with his dad, and his dad just what do you call that? Just shanghaied him, kind of took him, and it was the two of them, and they would double up and get turkeys every year. And I started hunting alone at that point, and I've been pretty much hunting turkey alone ever since.
Oh, well, does your oldest not get back out with you at all?
No, he actually went out, and he would help other people hunt.
I love
we
that.
went out with, he's mentored a lot. I wouldn't even say mentored. He's gone and called for a lot of people. One of the coolest hunts him and I were on, we did tandem calling. The young man was sitting in the middle of the blind. My son was kneeling in the front corner. I was in the opposite front corner kneeling, and the mom was behind us videoing her son take his first turkey. And we called him down off the roof, and we were doing the same thing. We were tandem calling, yelp, 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 and he gobbles and does all the fancy stuff. And I, I would just do my thing over here, and we pulled them down off the roofs. They came in, and that young man, he's taken another young girl. He's taken a gentleman, I believe, that had hunted turkeys for years and years and years and could not get one, and he called him in a bird. So yeah, and we started out with the interesting thing is we started out with a crossbow and a ground blind. That's all I knew how to do. We didn't have a shotgun. We didn't own a shotgun at the time, so I've only picked up a shotgun probably in the last 5 years. Just to try and be a little bit more mobile, try to be a little more adventurous, expand my horizons, try something new, see what it was all about. But no, he's really been off on his own, hunting with the guys and doing stuff, and it's pretty cool to watch. But we haven't been back out together since he was a little kid.
But such a proud mom moment, like to get that. So we had a podcast recently where we had Ronnie Bain on, and he's a big upland hunter, but we did dive into his podcast about, getting our youth in the outdoors and how there's really like that 10%, like you were saying with your youngest, where he just really doesn't have that drive and that passion, but your oldest does. And sometimes we don't do these children enough justice by, if we have a child that wants the outdoors, that we need to feed that passion. We don't need to force it to those that don't want it, but he called it that 10% of those people. And it can be with women, it can be with kids, but to feed a passion into a child that loves the outdoors and grows a passion like that, and now is out, assisting other people have success, is such a rewarding feeling. And the fact that that's kind of where he started was, you and a mother-son moment in a blind, and it's now basically graduated into this. Like, that's what success is all about in the outdoors.
It absolutely is. And what most people may or may not realize is that if the dad hunts and takes them, there's a certain success rate, but that success rate goes up exponentially if the mom is part of the equation. If the mom is in the field and is a hunter as well, it just exponentially
Absolutely.
grows.
Absolutely. We have that saying here at Women of the Wild, and we say it almost every podcast, but it couldn't be more true, is you can take a man hunting and you've taken a man hunting. But you take a woman hunting and you've introduced a community, because they're taking their kids, they're taking their friends, they're taking maybe spouses that didn't hunt, but they're wanting to share that experience. And you often see where, dad takes the son out, and, they might grow a passion, but the percentage is lower. That when kids are home and dad hunts, dad sometimes goes and he goes, where if mom's going, typically the kids are in tote. And eventually that 10% is getting more of an outreach to have that exposure to the outdoors, that you're increasing the amount of kids that are going to have that exposure and decide whether they want to pursue something in the outdoors. And I mean, your son is the perfect example of that you got to, even though, both you and your spouse hunted, he went with mom, and he could have went with dad and still had the same experience. But the reality of it is he went with mom, and now he's grown into this young man who is assisting other people in the outdoors, which our outdoorsmen, it's very important to be supporting others. And when you have the ability and capabilities, like your son learning to call and getting so good at it, why not share that with other people? And to me, there's nothing better in this world than sharing something like that with someone else and seeing their first harvest and having that success. I almost get more excited. I shouldn't say almost. I definitely get more excited to see other people harvest before myself.
It's I had talked to you before offline, and you know that I volunteer and strike for the state of Kentucky, and a lot of that has to do with giving back and giving people some sort of foundation or inspiration or encouragement that they can do that too. I heard something recently in the last few years that said young people, especially kids, they need to see somebody that looks like them. And somehow that clicks with them, and it means I can do it too. And I think that's super important for ladies in the outdoors. And when I started teaching, it was an oddity. But I do have to say that all of the people that I have instructed with over the years have been very accepting and encouraging of a woman coming in and teaching hunter's ed and bow hunter's ed. And I get a lot of questions from guys like, how did you get started, and what can I do for my wife with this? And just being there, not even getting an opportunity at that point to teach other women, it was rewarding, because in a roundabout way, I could help somebody help their wife, their daughter, their girlfriend, that, their sister get in the outdoors and find something that worked for them. But these days, I really enjoy. Like you said, it's funny that you had mentioned about a wife potentially getting her husband out there. A couple years back, I was working with Fish and Wildlife, and I did it was during COVID where we couldn't get out much, and we were doing an online thing for archery. And I was teaching an archery class, and we were practicing, and we were setting up our bows, and we were doing all this stuff. And one of the women in that class, she actually went out that year and got a buck, and then took her husband out, and he got one too. And that was amazing. I didn't expect that. It's just so rewarding when you have an opportunity to give back a little bit, and then somebody takes that and runs with it, because so many people have invested in me in the past and helped me when I had questions, when I needed answers, when I didn't understand things. And it makes all the difference in the world.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And like, we have our own prodigy, I say, Hannah, our mutual friend, that's exactly kind of the same situation. She was a hunter previously, but she really hadn't dabbled in a lot. And I kind of took her under my wing as, like, I don't want to say a mentor, but like, did a lot of educational style trips with her, or just late night conversations of what do I need to look for. And she grew into this amazing, and a lot of people don't like the term huntress, but in all reality, that's what she became. And then a couple months later, she started getting Justin out with her, and now she's getting her husband out with her, and that is now leading to getting the kids out. And it's just goes to show the community that a female can bring into the outdoors just by introducing that one person. And it's absolutely rewarding. We need to jump to a quick commercial break to hear from our mid-segment sponsors, but I'd like to dive into a little bit more of what we were just discussing as far as you being an instructor when we come back.
Okay, that'd be great.
Share your love of the outdoors with your little ones through the exciting adventures in Dr. Josh Farr's children's books. As an avid sportsman, Dr. Josh Farr has taken his passion for the outdoors and uses his vivid storytelling to teach valuable lessons and appreciation of the world. Learn the alphabet through the ABCs of hunting. Find joy in exploring the outdoors with Let's Go Out and Play and more. You and your child will love learning about nature with Dr. Josh Farr. See all of his books now at drjoshfarr.com. That's drjoshfarr.com.
Weeby Knives, a brand of skinning, fleshing, and butchering knives perfect for the hunters, trappers, and fishermen, with a unique high-quality knife for animals of all shapes and sizes. You can find them and more information at weebyknives.com or on Facebook, Instagram. Stonehouse Digital Consulting. Elevate your small business with Stonehouse's expert marketing solutions. Ignite your online presence and thrive with a tailored strategy to drive your growth. You can find them and more information at stonehousedigitalconsulting.com or on Facebook, Instagram, or LinkedIn. Livingston County Pheasants Forever, Chapter 465, with a mission to conserve pheasant, quail, and other wildlife through habitat improvements, public access, education, and conservation. You can contribute by joining the meetings on the first Thursday of every month at 7 p.m. at the Howell American Legion Hall on the corner of M59 and Grand River. For more information and to get involved, you can find them at pf465.com or on Facebook, Instagram. Dreamcatcher Charters, a Michigan-based guide service for walleye, sturgeon, and duck hunting, with a passion that drives their success, sharing the phenomenal Michigan waterways with everyone. You can find them on Facebook, Instagram. Feather Moon Outdoors, offering calls made from select materials. Every pot is fine-tuned in the house using the highest quality materials available. Also offering diaphragm, slate, glass, grunt calls, and more. For more information, you can find them at feathermoonoutdoors.com or on Facebook, Instagram. Stay tuned, more podcasts to come. Welcome back. We are here with Ellen, and this woman is an incredible, inspirational woman out there sharing what she's learned and overcome over the years with other people to get into the outdoors. And you have quite a background as an instructor. So I would love for you to tell the listeners kind of everything that you're involved in, because you have quite the list of things that you're out here doing, and it's all in purpose of introducing the outdoors to other people?
An interesting story. The way I got started with instructing was I had to take my oldest son to get his hunter's egg card, and I went to the class with him because I wasn't going to leave him alone to to sit there all day, and I went through the class with him, and I was bored out of my mind. It was so boring. There's just no other word. And I went home from that experience and I said something to his dad. I said, this was the most boring thing I've ever seen in my life. And he looked at me and he did not mean this in a negative or bad way, but he said, well, if you can do better, then go ahead. And I was like, huh, okay. So we lived in West Virginia at the time. So I went and made inquiry and became an instructor in the state of West Virginia. And they were so happy to have me there. I remember distinctly the older gentleman, the lead instructor, he looked at me and he goes, we need women instructors. You know, we have all these teenage girls coming in here and it's going to do wonders for them to see a woman teaching. I'm like, oh, okay. And it wasn't too long after, then we moved to Kentucky. I only taught, I think 2 years in West Virginia. And it took us about a year to get settled in here. And then, I saw Fish and Wildlife at an event and I said, hey, I was an instructor in West Virginia. I would like to teach here. And they were like, we would love to have you. And I went through the process of getting certified. And here in Kentucky, we have a hunter training officer that will certify you. And, they're your go-to person if you need anything. And my HTO found that I had a passion for bow hunting and archery. And he's like, would you be willing to be certified as a bow hunter's ed instructor? And I was like, yeah, absolutely. Because, the other instructors were like, they wanted to run the gun range, and me, I'm just like, hi. And so he found a niche for me, and I just went from there. And I think I was teaching for about a year, and he contacted the woman who was in charge of becoming an outdoors woman program for the state of Kentucky. And he said, you need to get a hold of this woman, and see what she can do. And she called me and she said, no, Will said I could borrow you, but I wasn't allowed to keep you. She goes, what would you think about, teaching these classes? And one of the first things she asked me to teach was a rifle class. And I was like, I've never taught a rifle class. I don't know how to do this. She's like, do you know how to use a gun safely? And I'm like, yes. She goes, I'm going to pair you up with someone from Fish and Wildlife who runs ranges for the conservation camps, and she'll help you with everything. And the educational branch of Fish and Wildlife is just one of the most wonderful group of people I have ever worked with. They provide. They just have servants' hearts. They're all about whatever it takes to get the job done. Mm-hmm. And this young woman came in there. She showed me how to run a range. We had a blast. And we do a quarter shoot at the end of it. And it just became a thing. I've taught all kinds of classes for them. We develop classes based on what folks say they want. I'm not sure if people know about becoming an outdoors woman. If you go through your state Fish and Wildlife website, you can find all sorts of resources and organizations. You can find Field of Fork and, Hook and Cook and Becoming an Outdoors Woman. And you can go to an event in another state. Like you could come to Kentucky, but the activities that you do in Kentucky are usually, things that we would do in our state. To go to Alaska, you could do sled dogs, maybe if you go somewhere in Michigan or something, you could do ice fishing. And we do everything here in Kentucky, from foraging to kayaking to tree identification, archery, hunting. There's just something for everyone. There's crafting classes, there's jewelry making classes, you name it, hiking, orienteering, it's all there. So it's all like a starting point. And then they have beginning classes, they have more advanced classes. And if you ask for it, we try to make it happen. But these programs, if people are looking like Field of Fork, I was a mentor for a dove hunt, and I didn't really know much about dove hunting. They wanted somebody who could handle firearms safely and that they could trust, being with someone. And I went in there, learned all about dove hunting. They help you pattern your shotgun. They take you out on a dove hunt. They bring you back, and they show you how to process the bird. They show you how to cook the bird. It's a wonderful experience. And I've assisted with the turkey hunting class. Like, I've given the seminar portion, and then we have people that butcher the bird and cook the bird, and somebody that takes you to the range. Wonderful programs. So I've just been blessed with the opportunity. And Kentucky has a lot of opportunities, but I would encourage anybody, even young people, that some of these states have apprenticeship programs. Volunteers are so desperately needed in some of these instances, because a lot of the folks that started out, they're aging out. I'm not a spring chicken anymore. I'll be able to do this for a few more years, Lord willing, but we need to have that next generation coming in behind us and saying, yeah, I'm willing to, come in and help and move the needle and help other people get out there.
Absolutely. I mean, that's just it. We have to have that next generation being willing to step up and educate. So in turn, we have to educate them in order for them to have that experience and to get out there. And I mean, not everybody has that. Like we talked about previously before the podcast, of our upbringing to the outdoors was not too far off from one another, that we didn't really have an educator in a lot of aspects, that we kind of just had to trial and error and figure it out. And I feel that we went through multiple generations where that's unfortunately what happened. But what I've been noticing is those women who maybe had to run through trial and error and had to figure it out themselves, that they have become more inclined to making sure that the next generations don't have that we do have those mentors available to make sure that, when a girl wants to get involved in the outdoors, or a kid wants to get involved in the outdoors, that we're there with open arms and saying, yes, let's go. Let me tell you what I've learned. And one of those things that we talked about is, there's no right way. There's the way that you do it, and there's everybody else's way of doing it. There's definitely wrong ways, but we educate on those, and we just teach, like, this is what I've learned. But at the end of the day, you still have to figure out what works best for you.
Well, anyone who's taken any of my classes will tell you. Ellen will say, ask me how I know, because I usually know because I did it wrong.
Right.
And I had a lesson that I learned, and that's the wonderful thing. Last couple of years I've been able to teach, learn to hunt turkey and learn to hunt deer for Fish and Wildlife for Becoming an Outdoors Woman. And I have been able to shortcut the process. Everyone will have to go out and learn the woods and learn the animals and learn things their way, the hard way, through experience. But there are some things you don't have to learn the hard way, especially if someone's gone before you and is sitting there going, don't do that. Don't do that. No, not a good idea. But, I've been blessed. I've hunted turkey for years and years and years, just trial and error. And there's been a lot of error, but there's been a lot of success. The last few years, I've had the opportunity to hunt with guys who know how to hunt turkeys. And they do a lot of hunting of turkeys, and it has grown me as a hunter exponentially. So yes, having someone to go with you and someone to help you and teach you how to do things, it just puts you light years ahead. And the more you succeed, the more you want to go out there, the more you want to hunt, the more things you're willing to take on. I'm trying to learn trapping now. So, save the turkey.
We can help with that.
Oh, I would love it, because it's the time factor. I'm more of a show me kind of girl. So, I got these foothold traps. I've been using live traps, and I've had moderate success with the live traps, but I could do better. It's just what I was able to get away with doing. But yeah, those things matter. Even a phone call. Years ago, I had a friend that said, I have this lady hunter, and, can she contact you if she has questions? I'm like, sure, give her my phone number. I mean, I've talked to people texting, over the phone, through group chats. There's different ways depending on what your schedule's like and what you feel you're willing to take on. You don't have to take on the whole kit and caboodle at once.
Right. And it's important to be welcoming in that sense of, if somebody wants to get in the outdoors, it may not be, I mean, we all don't have the time to just devote to constantly taking people out, but even if it's something as simple as picking up the phone and giving a couple tips and tricks to get somebody started, I mean, that simple of a conversation is enough to inspire somebody and educate them enough to get outdoors and, hey, here's some tips, but also here's some do's and don'ts, and see what works for you. But you're right, even with all the education in the world, you still have to get out there and you still have to find your way. You still have to educate yourself, and you're still going to have the moments of, oh, I shouldn't have done that, or, oh, this is how I could do it better. It's experience that grows you as a hunter.
It is. And the moments when I have found that the things you didn't think were going to work actually work. And when that happens, it's just a light bulb moment. Starting out hunting for turkeys in a blind with a crossbow with small children, I kind of felt safe inside that blind. Like, that was just what I knew. And in the last few years, since the boys have grown up, getting outside of that blind to go hunt and potentially like go chase after turkeys, or just being beside a tree and not have anything around you. It's been such a foreign experience for me. But wow, it's been an exciting, growing experience getting away from that. So when people say, oh, you hunt different, or you do what? Well, I didn't have anybody to take me out with a shotgun and set me against a tree and say, okay, this is what we're going to do. We're going to get in under the roost after dark, and we're going to use a locator call at night to, find out where they're roosting the night before. I never had that. I literally picked an area where I saw turkeys. I would say, okay, I see turkeys here, so I'm going to put a blind here, and I'm going to put decoys out, and I'm going to call them to me. And if I had to work them for 2, 3, 4 hours or half a day, or stay, all day hunting, if I had to do that, that's what I did. And I was successful, but it wasn't the way everybody else does it.
Right. And it's funny because for me personally, I really enjoy the calling aspect. That I mean, when I have the kids, I definitely, because I have a 10-year-old and a 14-year-old, and last year my 14-year-old, he was 13 at the time, and he got to harvest his very first turkey last year. And for their hunts, I set them up because I guide turkeys here in Michigan, and I set them up kind of where it's typically like a no-fly zone. Like, I don't typically set up right at the roost, but for little kids or first timers, I definitely set up a little bit closer to the roost, but not too close that you're going to bust the roost. And for them to that excitement, for them to have that first adrenaline, like hear them on the roost, get off the roost, and have that shot opportunity, almost instant. It's enjoyable for them, and I enjoy that moment with them. But for me personally, I love spot and stalking turkeys. I love the communication game of the calling back and forth. So you just have to find also what you like, what styles you like, and you need to experiment, like you said, blind versus sitting under a tree. And it all depends on you too. Like, if you're a super fidgety person, and turkeys, they have this incredible vision, they see in full color, but the blink of an eye, they can see that. So if you're not somebody who can sit still, it's important to utilize a blind or have cover, opposed to somebody that can sit like a rock underneath the tree and not budge. You're going to be okay to not use cover or a blind. So what would be, I guess, since we're having this topic, we've rolled into this, what would you say would be a big tip that you would give to anyone that wants to get out turkey hunting this spring? Because you love your turkeys. So what would be your big tip for somebody that wants to get in the outdoors and experience a turkey hunt for the first time?
Probably the biggest thing is, don't be afraid to put yourself out there. If I see turkeys, I'll knock a door, and I've just been excited talking about guns, ammo, shotguns, turkey, something in a store, and had a landowner walk up to me and go, do you hunt turkeys? And I'm like, yes. And they're like, I have a turkey that I can't stand. He's in my front yard. Would you like to come hunt my place? I'm like, oh, here, write your number down. I'll be right out. That actually happened to me. And I hunted that lady's property successfully, and that was an incredible hunt. And then I hunted there for a couple of years, and I made friends with the landowner down below. And last year I hunted his place. And once you do get permission, listen to the landowner or listen to the person that's giving you a tip. For example, a long time ago in Pennsylvania, I was hunting on my mom's farm, and I really just wasn't getting the turkeys to me, and I could hear them, but they were just so far away. And somehow, my husband ran into this person, and he said, oh yeah, that turkey's up on that gas pad all the time. He goes, as long as you don't get out of the truck, he'll stay there. So he goes, but if you go towards those pine trees over there, that's where he roosts. And we went in early before this storm. There was a storm rolling in, and I was sick as a dog. I had bronchitis, and I had forgot my cough drops. And I literally texted my husband at the time, and I said, can you bring me the cough drops? And by the time he got up there, the turkey was there. And I did some calling, nothing was happening. So I literally called the landline at my mom's house, and my son, who was probably 10 at the time, I said, Ethan, what do I do? I can't get this turkey to come to me. And he goes, well, Mama, he goes, what you want to do is you want to copy that hen. And if she's making that sound, you want to make the same sound. And he goes, you're going to tick her off, and she's going to come to you. And I'm like, really? And he's like, I promise, Mama. I said, okay. I hung up the phone. There's a lot of this kind of stuff that goes on in my life. And so I started doing what he said. And the weird thing was, these gas pads are 40, 50 feet up in the air. And that turkey took the high ground. And he was looking down at my blind. I saw him walking across that ridge. But what I did not see was the hen. And he was right. I made her so mad. She came in to investigate, and she flew. The first instance I knew she was there, she flew across the window of the blind. I was like, what was that? And then he walked down off that gas pad, came right into the decoys, and I shot him. And I mean, there's like a thunderstorm rolling in. Like, you got to come down now. We just got a tip. It was the same thing with this lady. The property that I hunted beside her, the gentleman said, look, it was a very uniquely shaped property. You could not get to the birds where they roost without being seen. And he said, I want you to come back here, and I want you to just set a blind right here in this equipment shed. And that's what I did. And that's where I killed a turkey.
Yeah, it's really important. Those landowners or anyone that's observing property, like, to get out there, and even if you're unfamiliar with an area, but these people are seeing that property every day. They kind of learn the habits of those animals, even if they're not, quote unquote, scouting them, they're still seeing what they're doing. So I agree with you. I think it's really important to listen and maybe try other perspectives of beyond what you're normally comfortable with, especially with turkey hunting. Those birds they're not thinking with the right head at that time of the year anyway. So they're pretty unpredictable.
Well, the gentleman that told me to go ahead and set up in his equipment shed, the hunt as it unfolded was one of the most extraordinary things that ever happened to me, because they had a German Shepherd, and this German Shepherd would follow me to the blind, and then she would eventually drift off. Well, I had been coming in every morning, and it didn't work. So I said, you know what? I'm going to go get something to eat, and I'm going to come back. And there was a giant storm coming in. I set my decoys. The German Shepherd laid out in front of my blind with the decoys. So I was in a bowl. I was in the bottom of a bowl. So this turkey had the high ground, no matter where he came from. And I sat there, and most people would have got discouraged and said, this is never going to work. And she laid there for, 30, 40 minutes, and then came and laid in the equipment shed behind my blind while the storm rolled in. And after the storm was over, she had disappeared, and the gobbler ended up on the hillside. And it took me, I don't know, it was forever, an hour or so to work him down off of the hillside. And then he got in with one decoy, which was near a gas tank. I couldn't shoot in that direction, so I had to wait for him to actually see the breeding hen that I had laid down there. But most people would have quit. But those turkeys are used to that farmer, his tractor, the dog, whatever goes on at that place throughout the day. They're used to the normal comings and goings. I don't really pay that stuff any attention. My son one time, he was hunting in a spot like 100 yards away from me, and the neighbor, who was an absentee landowner, had bought a new 22 rifle and come in with an entire brick and was just over there just shooting. And we're heading towards last light, and my son is texting me. He's like, "We're never going to see any turkeys." I said, they're not going to see any turkeys because they're shooting over there. Just be patient. Sure enough, he shot the biggest bird he's ever shot that night. We both shot one, but he shot the biggest bird he's ever gotten that night because the neighbor drove them all over here. I don't give up and I don't quit, and I'm very persistent. And if I see a need to adapt, if something's not working, I just change what I'm doing. And I'm not afraid to do crazy things. There's been so many times I've ended up late to a hunt, and one of them was at that lady's property, and I got out of the truck, and you know how everybody says, close the door real quietly on your truck? Well, I didn't do that. I wasn't thinking. And so I got in the truck, and, I got my gun out, and I loaded it, and I shut the truck door, and I heard gobble, gobble, gobble. It's like, oh, wait, where'd that come from? So I went into the front seat where the rest of my stuff was, and I put on my vest, and I did all this stuff, and I shut the door just as hard, and I heard, and I was like, oh, he's right there somewhere. He's right on that hill. So I had to get my decoys out of the back of the truck. So I literally slammed that tailgate so hard, but I was paying attention and I was like, got you. I know where you are. And I took off to the hillside, and I went midway on the hillside, tucked into some trees, and just started flirting with him, just started talking to him. And eventually the one bird I was after had a broken gobble. I never got him to come down, but the other gobbler that he was with came down, and I got him. And it was just, he walked within 5 yards of me, just walked straight down and flew in and went right to the decoy.
I love it.
Well, and I cringe every time somebody says, don't slam the tailgate or don't slam the door. Yeah, go ahead. What can it hurt? You might know where they are.
Yeah, I was just going to say that, like, locator, it's a very misconception that you have to be quiet during certain aspects of a turkey hunt, because they'll gobble back to a dog barking, thunderstorms, car doors slamming. Like, when you're trying to locate a bird, they'll really respond to any loud noises.
Yeah, they absolutely will, and it's not always bad. If you know where they're at, then you can figure out. That's how I knew how to get to him, get underneath of him, because there was a horseshoe above me, and they had the high ground, and you could never make it up to the high ground. And that's how I learned to hunt the midway point on a ridge when I'm hunting turkeys. And I just tuck myself in midway, and I'll have either a road below me where I can set my decoys, or some other little like landing path where they can strut. Just finding those opportunities. And sometimes you just got to know where they're at. And sometimes it's through intel. I've seen them there. I know that time of day they're generally there, or an accident like slamming the tailgate. Yeah, right. That was huge. Yeah, and it was a huge learning thing for me.
Oh, I bet. But now I bet you don't concern yourself with slamming the truck door or the tailgate anymore, do you?
Nope. Don't even think about it.
I love that.
I don't. Well, some of the biggest things, when I first started turkey hunting, I will talk to the turkeys as long as they're talking to me. And I have kind of like this little way I think about turkey calling is I'm flirting with him. I'll be like, hey, come here, big boy. And I literally like talk this scenario through in my head. I'm probably like bizarre or something, but I'll talk to them, I'll let them talk to me, and then I'll just shut up and I won't say anything. And if they're quiet for too long, then, I'll start, hey, don't forget about me. I'm over here, mister. I'm over here. And the interesting thing that somebody told me was that they cannot gobble and walk at the same time. So I don't keep them gobbling to the point where they can't breathe, because then they can't walk. So I will just flirt with them and let them, get curious and let them come in. I don't let them off the hook, but I don't hammer them. You kind of have to feel the scenario out. But I've killed so many birds that way. Just, there's a little here and a little there. And I don't go by that whole yelp, yelp, yelp. I was told, you call too much, or you're too aggressive with your calling. And I was rather crushed. I was like, oh crap, I'm doing this all wrong. And then I had somebody look at me and go, wait a minute, you killed that really great turkey. How did you do it wrong? And I'm like, oh, okay, maybe I didn't. And then I think it was like the next spring, I was in Cabela's and I came across this book. It is my favorite book on turkey hunting. I read it every spring. Ray I, he wrote a book called The Turkey Hunter's Bible, Tips, Tactics, and Secrets of a Professional Turkey Hunter. So I was like, okay, he's a professional. And if you read through that book, he talks about, he'll just work those birds. He works them relentlessly. And he does this, he takes clients out and he takes important people out and he puts them on a bird. And I'm like, okay. So I'm not doing it that wrong. And it really inspired me to keep going. And that is another reason why people telling these stories or encouraging people, there is more than one way to skin a cat. Some people are very patient and lie in wait. Other people are more aggressive. Some people have family responsibilities, work responsibilities. They don't have time, inordinate amount of time to be out in the woods. So they're a little more aggressive, or they plan a little differently. They still get the job done. I can't call like my son does. My son will run a mouth call and he will go through the woods and he will be yelp, yelp, yelping as he walks through the woods. And by the time he sits down somewhere, the gobbler's right there. Yeah. I have not been able to have that happen yet, but he gets it done. Other people I know sit in a blind, and they'll kill birds just the same. So.
Yeah. And you got to think of it too. Like every hen out there has a different personality. So it's okay to be different. I use that theory with like goose hunting, right? Like I'm a tiny frame female and I don't have like that deep grasp that a lot of men have. But for some reason, my higher pitched goose calling kills birds. And that's no different. My theory with turkeys is, you like you said, you yelp, 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 and then you kind of wait to see how long it takes for them to gobble. And you what I do is I double that in the wait return. Typically, like I'll do a little count in my head before I'll start back calling. And there's definitely scenarios where I feel like you could overcall, because you have to know, like you said, that communication with that bird. It's a dance of flirting with them, or like you mentioned earlier, it's ticking that lead hen off, that boss hen off, ticking her off enough that she gets curious of, I got to shut this girl down. She's going to try to take my man. So it's listening and paying attention to what's going on in your surrounding. And it's going to be so dependent on that situation of how you need to react.
Well, the funniest thing, and probably the best thing the best experience I could have had turkey hunting, I got permission to hunt this little tiny property, and I set my blind up, and I'm sitting in the blind that morning, and this is maybe 2 or 3 years into hunting turkeys, and I'm by myself, and I had been working on my calling, and all of a sudden out of the bush, I hear yelp, 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 and it sounds like a train accident. Like, it is the most god-awful cadence. It's broken up. It's a mess. And I'm sitting there all smug in my ground bind going, buddy, you need to go home and practice. This is not how it's done. And just about the time that thought went through my head, this hen comes walking out of the woods and makes those exact sounds. And I'm like, Oh, for real. That was the hen making that. And to this day, you know, there are people that are great turkey callers, but I encourage people, even if you don't think you're the best at it necessarily, just like when I screeched on that pot call and I thought I ruined the whole hunt, there's been times when not being perfect has been exactly what that bird wanted to hear.
Mhm. Yeah, I
So
mean, especially sorry.
no, you're fine. We tend to think, especially when we're at a show and we're looking through all the turkey calls and you go and you see all these guys hammering these calls and, you know, being real loud and going after it. And I can't do some of the fancy cadences and, you know, clucks and purrs and different things that they do. And I really can't do it on a mouth call. But whatever I have been able to do, it's been sufficient. I've been able to put a lot of really nice birds on the ground. So I just tell people, yes, you can kill a turkey doing yelp, yelp, yelp. If that's all you can do is yelp, yelp, yelp on a box or a friction call, you can kill a turkey. And just give them that encouragement and that confidence to just go give it a try. Go see for yourself. You can do it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's an important thing too, is these birds, and it can happen in all forms, whether it's, you know, turkeys, whether it's waterfowl, anything that you're going to have that communication with a species out there, they can become call shy and they can understand, they can tell that the difference in that one little thing or that one little note or that pitch being different might be enough to intrigue them and be like, wait, what was that? It was different. And animals are curious. I mean, we all are curious. So just being a little bit different isn't a bad thing.
No, I've run into two instances, two specific sets of birds that knew something was off. When you were doing the regular turkey hunting, yelp, yelp, yelp stuff, they just knew. I had one bird that did not like blinds, did not like decoys. He would not, I had to put him in a pinch point and deer hunt him. I am not opposed to deer hunting turkeys if necessary. I will adapt and overcome. And so I let them teach me. I let them teach me what they do, what makes them shy. And I will find a way. And that particular bird, I found a triangle that he liked to go through, and I put him in a pinch point where there was only 40 yards between me and the other side, and that's how I killed that bird. We had a set of birds here on the farm called the chieftains, and they were magnificent. And my son was like, I'm going to go hunt these birds. And he went up there, and if those birds heard you calling, they went 8 miles away. And I said to him, I said, you're going to have to just get their interest and then just be quiet. You're just going to have to be quiet. He went up there for a couple days, and he would not let those birds rest. They would stay over the edge. They would not come up onto the flat part of the field. And I said, that's it. Go find somewhere else to hunt. I'm going to hunt these birds. And I sat there, and the first time they went through, they saw my decoys and they didn't like my Jake. So when they went out of sight, I got out of the blind, went to the bathroom, pulled the Jake, put him back in the blind. The next time they came through, I had 2 hens out there. They didn't like what they saw. So I ended up pulling both decoys. And I just sat there and I waited for them on a travel route. And when they went through, that's when I got the first one of them. I knew that he brought the flock up onto this flat landing every evening. And I just got out there before him and waited. Sometimes you got to let them teach you how to kill them.
Absolutely. Overcome and adapt constantly. Sometimes it's best not to use decoys at all. Sometimes it's good to not call. And sometimes you got to pull all the tricks out of the hat.
Absolutely. And that's the thing I love about hunting. That's what keeps me going, because you never stop learning, because what you said is very true. Whatever happens in that animal's life shapes them. You know, they are creatures that not necessarily highly intelligent, very instinctual. You're playing in their bedroom, you know, you're just coming in and you're rearranging all the furniture, and they're like, hey, what happened here? You have to learn what their idiosyncrasies are and what what makes them tick. And I think that is the most passionate thing. I will literally, and I've had the luxury of private land, I will see a bird and that is my target bird. And I will hunt that bird as long as it takes. I just do it, whatever. Last year I was in Pennsylvania. Me and my best friend went, and we went on a piece of public land. And we kept talking to this gobbler. We were there in the morning. We were there at night. We were there midday. We came so close. We were one place. He was in another place. It just seems like we couldn't connect. And finally, Philip said to me, he goes, we are going to take the afternoon and we're going to go scouting. And I was like, what? I was scared to death because I figured, we're going to walk through the woods. We're just going to spook everything. And we eventually came and found the roost. Didn't mean to, just walking by, I'm like, hey. And we found the roost. And it was funny to me because he said, okay, he jumps from this branch to this branch and then goes up to that branch. And we hunted that bird for a few more sits, and then he had to go home. And I said, I'm going to stay one more night. I'm going to stay one more night, and I'm going to go after this bird tomorrow. And I went after the bird, and no success. So that evening, I went out and I sat where I knew he would come, because he followed this ATV road, but he didn't come that way that night. He came in behind me. But the best thing I've ever seen was that bird came in, jumped that branch exactly like he said it would, then jumped to the next branch and went up to roost above me. Right? I watched him do what Philip said he would do, because he studied the branches and where the poop was and this, that, and the other thing. And I just sat there in amazement. And I was like, wow, we really had that bird pegged. He won the day, he won the season. I went home and, he stayed up he didn't stay up at his tree when I walked out, but I waved to him as I left. I said, okay, you won, buddy. You got to the roost. And I walked out. But one of the best experiences I've ever had in the woods, because it showed me not to be afraid to go out and scout midday, kind of be fearless with some of the things you try. And if nothing else, you come away learning something that you can, stick in your back pocket and use another time.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's all it is paying attention and putting those moves into play the next time that you need them. And it's okay to not be successful every time. And I love your high spirit that you have regarding hunting, that it's not about the harvest, that it's about getting out there. It's about the experience and learning and educating. And like you said, how Philip told you, like, this is how it happened, by studying the tracks, by studying the fecal matter, knowing what branch we went to. And there is an eye for that alone that creates a whole new world of success for you when you embed that creature and its habits into what you're trying to learn about them. And it's pretty neat. We have a girl on staff, Megan, who when you hunt with her, you'll notice she is always like, she pays attention and she's looking through her peripherals, but she's really like focused on the ground. And it's because she's so good at identifying tracks and scat, and she knows that like a tail whip this way means that, and a belly drag here means this. And it's so much fun to watch those people who are that embedded in the way that an animal moves that they can predict things like that. And then you to be able to experience like, oh my gosh, he's right, it's this light bulb. And then it opens a whole new world for you of basically tracking and identifying that animal to follow it for the next time. And, in a few years, you'll be doing the same thing.
Absolutely. One of the biggest things that I learned for turkey hunting is binos. You have to have binoculars. Mm-hmm. I never gave it any thought whatsoever. And I started hunting with all of these guys the last couple of years through Scentlock and Blocker Outdoors. And they always have binoculars, and I never really, rangefinder for shooting archery, okay, but I didn't get it because I can see pretty well. Mm-hmm. And it was funny because they could see things I couldn't see. They would see a gobbler and say, nope, he's over there. And we would start hoofing it 400 yards. And I was like, wow. And they looked at me and said, you can either save yourself time because you can say, okay, that wasn't a turkey, because sometimes, like you hunt, this is true. When you want to see something, every
You'll-
stick looks like a deer. Every, yes, every shadow in the woods is something, and you see what you want to see. When you're shed hunting, everything's an antler. Oh Lordy. Having binoculars helps you avoid going where you don't need to go. I was on a different hunt in PA, same thing. There was a flock of geese, 300 miles away. No, there's no point to calling to a flock of geese. Stop that. You're wasting your time. Excuse me. But binoculars, these guys use them, and it is like the biggest tool in their arsenal. And they are scouring the woods. They are looking for that redhead. They're looking for that, little dark spot off in the distance. And it helps you to, if the animal sees you first, you're usually out of the game. But if you see them first, you have a real shot, and that really closes the gap for you.
Absolutely. With that being said, we are going to cut to another commercial break to hear from our closing sponsors, but I do have some more questions for you when we return. And now to the final segment to this week's episode of Women of the Wild podcast. We will conclude this segment by thanking our closing sponsors. Stay tuned for more of this week's episode after this short word from our sponsors. Muzzy Pheasant Farms, a mid-Michigan family-owned and operated pheasant game preserve that is open year-round. Muzzy offers educational courses and hunts. They are family-oriented, creating a great opportunity for new and seasoned upland hunters. With no membership required, come hunt with Muzzy Pheasant Farms. You can find more information at muzzypheasantfarms.com or check them out on Facebook and Instagram. Blast and Cast Guide Service is a veteran-owned and operated Michigan-based guide service for the Great Lakes. With decades of experience of fishing and waterfowl, they ensure a safe and enjoyable trip every time. You can check them out at blastandcastguideservice.com or on Facebook and Instagram. Ultimate Veteran Adventures. UVA offers outdoor therapy, recreation, and camaraderie through hunting and fishing adventures around the country for veterans, active duty military, Gold Star families, and first responders. You can find them at ultimateveteranadventures.com or on Facebook and Instagram. Sawmill Creek Bait and Lures, a husband and wife owned and operated company, the home of the C4, one of the best trapping canine lures on the market. You can find them at sawmillcreekbaitandlures.com or on Facebook and Instagram. Wicked 7 Outdoors, a Southwest Texas outfitter guide service with an exceptional care and quality of backcountry mountain hunts for free-range aoudad. Also offering high fence and low fence exotics, come immerse yourself in the outdoor experience. You can find Wicked 7 Outdoors on Facebook and Instagram. Misguided Outdoors is a female-driven Michigan-based guide service offering turkey and waterfowl hunts. Misguided is focused on educating women and youth, providing a hands-on hunt experience for all ages. You can find them on Facebook and Instagram. We thank you for tuning in, and we hope you enjoy the rest of this episode. Welcome back. We are here with Ellen, and we are talking turkey talk. And you were just talking about the necessity of binos in the field, and 1,000% agree with you. I don't ever leave my house without them, regardless of what type of hunt I'm doing, because you just don't know. But with that topic, what can we dive into your pack and like what you're packing, your essentials, and you might need this and your absolutely don't needs?
Snacks are huge with me. I'm kind of practical in the pack. Mostly for me, I'm always cold, so I make sure I have the right clothes. I always have binoculars now. I never leave home without them. Water, of course, a small first aid kit. I wear contacts. I have contacts, but the basics are snacks and my turkey calls, and I love my turkey calls. The one thing that I have found that helps me, and I do make sure I always have that with me, is it's called a turkey hammock, and it's this little. It folds up into like this little package kind of deal, and it might weigh a pound, maybe not even, and it's kind of a sling pack, and you can put the turkey in there in this little hammock, and then it has a a shoulder thing, and I have back and hip issues. So I can't carry a bird out on my back, and I can't carry it in the game pouch that's in my back, but I can sling it over my shoulder and carry it out that way. And that's been a lifesaver for me, that one. But normally I'll take one of my pot calls. I'm a striker collector. Like, I love strikers. They're just all over the place. And I'll run through them and I'll see what most people don't realize is that wood has a tone, and you'd have to ask a call maker about all this stuff according to density and whatnot. But you can have 5 different strikers and you can get 5 different hens out of a pot call with them.
Mm-hmm.
And so I will take a pot and I will run a bunch of strikers. I'll pick the best of the strikers and an all-weather striker, and I put those in my pack. I have never really truly mastered an owl hooter. It's a locator call that is highly overused in my area. So I'm so excited. I just got a pilated woodpecker call from Nebraska Game Calls. And I got it here and I was like, oh, let me see if this thing works. So I sat out on the front porch the other day and I was practicing with this call, and I had heard pilated woodpeckers over on the neighbor's woodlot. And I was like, they came and one flew right across the porch. And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm so excited. I can't wait to get out there. So I'll use a crow call. I'll use, the pilated woodpecker. I just got a brand new box call in for this season, so I'm super pumped about that. Just the basic calls, but mostly I dress for the weather. And that's pretty much what's in my pack. I'm for the creature comfort, so I carry more stuff than most guys carry. Like, I have tissues and the stuff for my contacts and Band-Aids and whatever.
So
It's
what
a
is
mommy
your
thing, but snacks.
So what is your go-to call that you prefer? Like, and you were talking about like the strikers with the different materials that are used. Do you have like a preference over glass slate? Do you have like a certain specific brand of calls that you prefer? Or do you just is it something where you just buy a few and you kind of make the sound that you want and roll with that?
I think the best thing for anybody to do that wants to look at calls is to go to a sportsman show where, like NWTF. This year, I know it has a name. I can't remember the name of it, but I have a pot call that is dinosaur poop. That is the surface. That is the playing surface. And I'm going to tell you, that is one heck of a call. I love that call. I have slate. A slate is my preference, but I like slate over top of things. I had a call and I lost it last year, and it broke my heart because it was a gift, but it was slate over copper. And that call, I could play loud, I could play soft. I prefer slate. It's been close to 10 years in the making, me running mouth calls. I found out actually from another lady, excuse me, I have a small palate, and the roof of my mouth, I guess, is, kind of high or arched or something. And she's like, bend your mouth calls and trim the tape. Everybody says trim the tape. Well, some people are like, don't bend the tape. You might change up the sound, this, that, and the other thing. Last year on a whim, I bought some of these, they're called Fox Pro Hybrid Spur. I have no idea, but girl, I put that thing in and I put it in. I didn't have to do nothing to it. I didn't have to trim the tape. I didn't have to do nothing. And it just ran. And last year I ran a mouth call. I called in a Jake, and me and that Jake sat there talking until 2 other gobblers came in to see what on earth did this dude think he was doing over here. Because he ran away. When he saw them coming, he ran away. But when he snuck back in, they came in closer, and that's how I got him. But, I love calls. I love to pick them up and just, handle them. My very first pot call that I picked up at that show in Harrisburg was a Mountain Hollow Game Calls, slate over slate in walnut. And I used that call every year at some point in time. And I actually wore it down to where the slate cracked, and I had to buy a replacement for it. But I will throw everything but the kitchen sink at them. If they don't like the sound of this, I'll try that. Or I'm not like my son. I can't run, a friction call and do a mouth call. I'm not that talented. But I'll try something. I'll try something different. And I kind of learned this by watching predator hunting on TV, Fox Pro fur takers. And they were like, if this sound might not call them in, go ahead and switch it to this sound. Go ahead and switch it to that. And I'm like, you can do that? And that's what I do.
Absolutely.
I play and I play and I play until I get, a friend told me, you will kill the gobbler that wants to die today. If he does not want to die, good luck. But and all he was saying was, if that gobbler is in a mood to come to you, they're going to come to you. You just have to figure out, what he wants to hear. Like, come on over here, we're going to play pool, or, we're going dancing, or let's go to the movies. I'm not sure what they hear when they hear, but you have to figure out what it is.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's all going to be a preference of that bird of that day. Without swearing, I call it I learned this in Africa actually, it's their 15 minutes of F up time. And that 15 minutes that every animal at some point in time in their day is going to have, that 15 minutes where they're going to slip up, and you just got to find it. And like that to me is what I have found the most true is you can watch those birds come in, and if they're on their A game, they see those decoys and something just doesn't look right, they see a blind, whatever it may be, that you're not killing that bird that day. But if you catch one that he's just a little bit off or just enough distracted, you found him in that 15-minute window, and that's your opportunity.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, I'm convinced that on some days you could call a gobbler in just like squeaking two pieces of plastic together. It doesn't even matter.
Right.
I love turkey calls, and I love walking through. There's nothing I love more than walking through a show and just looking at all the calls. And, like I said, I'm a striker queen. I buy all kinds of different, they're made of all different kinds of woods, and they all look all different. I can find them in the dark. I know what I'm looking for, and just go out there and have fun. Just go out there and have fun. Some people are way more serious about it than me. And I just realized, I'm getting older, and I'm kind of like, I might not be the best in the world at this, but darn it, I'm good enough to get by, and I'm doing pretty good. So I'm happy. And that's just the way I go with it.
And it's healthy to feel that way, regardless of your age. It's healthy to get out there and just have a good time. And there's nothing wrong with being serious and taking it very serious, but you still have to be lighthearted about it all, because if you start to lose the fun in it, and you start to overlook the experience that you're really out there connecting in the outdoors and learning the behavior of those animals. And it's an all-encompassing journey out there, and you really got to just let it happen and have fun with it.
Well, during the hunt, that's not so much me. I am like, game on, game face, we're hunting, we're going. But at the end of the day, if you have something that didn't work, or you have something that did work, or you tried something and, maybe I need to do it a little differently next time, that's where you just not need to get upset about it.
Right.
If you don't have a good spirit about it, or a good attitude about learning throughout the process, that's when people get very discouraged. They're like, oh, I don't know how to do this. And, I just think everything's overcomable. Some people who haven't been able to kill a turkey, if they go out with someone else and see how they do it, and they learn something new, they can apply it. And then the whole ball game has changed. So put yourself out there and find people to hunt with. And I've been really, really blessed, because I've had people that were willing to take me out and show me the ropes and show me how they do things. And, just super supportive of the whole thing and whatever I needed at the time. And I've just been really blessed.
Yes. And it shows how much you absorb it and change from it and adapt. And share it with other people. It's really important. Now, let me ask you this. We're closing in on towards the end of this podcast, and one thing that I always like to ask our guests on the show is if you can give one piece of advice or one tip to a new hunter, what would that like one sound piece of advice be?
Oh, you know, you're talking to somebody that hunts. Does a hunter ever say one thing? I said, cool. There's three. You've
Okay.
got to keep a positive attitude. You've got to be flexible and adapt and just not be rigid. And then just never quit until the season is up, till they call time on the day, till the season is over. You just don't quit. Those three things: positive attitude, be flexible, be willing to change up the game. A lot of people get set in their ways and they're like, oh, you know, I'm going to go under the roost and I'm going to get this bird off the roost. And if that doesn't happen, then they get discouraged, or they'll go off and hunt another bird or whatever. Sometimes patience and just being flexible is all you need to succeed. And don't be afraid to ask for help. I put myself out there. I don't care who you are. I don't care if you're the biggest name in the hunting industry, or, you know, you're the guy that sits at the Waffle House every Friday morning and knows how to hunt turkeys. I'm willing to sit there and listen to your hunting stories and get some wisdom. I put myself out there. I'm willing to say I don't know, and I'm willing to say help me.
Yeah, and I think that's honestly like probably one of the biggest things that new, and it doesn't have to be hunting. It can be fishing, it can be foraging, it can be anything involving the outdoors, really any aspect of life. If you don't have the answer, there is nothing shameful or wrong with asking for help and asking for that answer, because it's the only way you're going to learn. And like you said earlier, learning from others' trials and tribulations out there and utilizing that in your now toolbox to adapt and overcome other situations is so important. So you always hear like, I didn't want to ask, I didn't want it to be a stupid question. There's no stupid questions. There's really not. Like if you're thinking it, if you're thinking it, someone else probably is too. So especially like when we do these women's hunts or like with bow or anything like that, when you're doing these events where you're in groups of people, don't be afraid to ask questions, because if you're thinking it, someone probably else is too. And they're probably just too afraid to step up and ask.
Yeah, I usually tell ladies, especially when I'm teaching, it's great when it's a class with all ladies, but I'll tell people, you know, if you have a question for me, hit me up on the break or whatever. Some people are just really nervous about asking or asking out loud in front of a lot of other people. But if you know, if you ask somebody, you can email them, you can hit them up on Facebook and Messenger. Just don't be afraid to ask. People who hunt in general, in my experience, are wonderful people, and they're just so giving and generous with their time and knowledge. I've never had anybody be ignorant or mean if I was asking for help. Everybody's just been super generous.
Yeah. In most experiences, we hear the horror stories from other people. And I mean, I grew up in a situation where like hunting it was very taboo for a woman to be out there. And I think that our society and our community of outdoorsmen has adapted well beyond that within at least the last 5 to 10 years, it is really taken a big turn that so many people, and your demographic matters too, but for the most part, you can ask in any of these groups, especially these women's groups, because they don't tolerate the drama of it. But most outdoor hunting groups on social media, or even at, your local game dinners or anything like that, you can ask those questions and you don't have to feel like it shouldn't be asked. If you have a question, ask it, because you deserve to know the answer.
Well, I could spend an entire day telling you stories about the folks that have been ignorant to me in gun shops and at trade shows, but what I have learned to do is I walk away from negative Nancy's. You know, if you're going to be negative or you're going to be, I just don't have to expend my time that way. I just walk away and find somebody else who's willing to talk to me, entertain the question, help me. I don't butt my head against a wall. If I walk into a gun shop and they don't want to wait on me, I take my money somewhere else.
Absolutely.
If, you know, I don't have time for that. I just hang around people who are positive and willing to put themselves out there and just be that person for you, whether it's a mentorship situation or just somebody to bounce ideas off of or whatever. I just hang around people that, you know, they're a positive influence and uplifting, encouraging. You can do this. You can do this. That's the only way. Because when you put things in your head, when you put negative things in your head, those things, you know, they just come to fruition. The brain is extraordinarily powerful. So I tend to surround myself with people who are upbeat, positive, and say, this can be done, or, you know, we'll get them another day, or we'll come at it a different direction. It's just what you have to do with anything.
And I think that attribute about you, I mean, you can tell you are that person in the first 10 seconds of meeting you. And I have to say, it's a wonderful thing to experience that light in somebody and that passion, because it's not something you see all the time. And I'm really glad that we had that conversation for these women that maybe they are experiencing, you know, those, like you said, those negative Nancy's. Walk away from it, because you're going to experience it at some point in time. But like Ellen said, the best thing that you can do is walk away from that and surround yourself by the light. Surround yourself by the positive people, because eventually it does wear, and you kind of have to pick your crowd there. And the more you surround yourself with positive, uplifting people, the more positive and uplifting it's going to be for you.
Yeah, absolutely. I heard a story once about some kind of study they did, and they would tell kids you could do it, and then they would tell another group of kids you could not do it. And the kids that were told they could do it rose to the expectations that were given to them, and they met all of the expectations that were set out. The other kids that were told, you know, we don't expect much of you, we don't expect anything from you, they sunk to that level. You want to surround yourself, you know, in any aspect of your life with people who are going to tell you, you can do this, you know, you can overcome this, you can change this, you can do this differently. Then you're going to be on a journey that is exciting for you.
Yes, definitely. Those like mentor quotes. And I remember not that long ago, I actually utilize this at work, and it's funny how trending TikTok can be sometimes, but I watched a video on there once, and it was a gentleman talking about how he came home and his grandma was boiling water on the stove, and she had a potato, an egg, and a coffee bean. And in this story, he goes on to say that, you know, grandma takes this egg and she puts it in the boiling water, and this egg has now become, and then it's hard, that if you crack it on something, it's going to break. But if you boil it, it's now hard, and you have that hard boiled egg. And so you take this potato, and this hard, dense potato, and you put it in that boiling water. And after a few minutes of boiling, it becomes soft, and you can mash, and that potato's soft now from its original hard origin. Well, then if you take a coffee bean, and you take that coffee bean and you put it in the water and you boil it, it changes the color of the water, but that bean remains the same. So the whole like moral of the story is that you can take a hard egg or a soft egg and make it hard, and you can take a hard potato and make it soft, and the environment around it, which is the boiling water, distorts it. But when you have that coffee bean and you put that coffee bean in the water, what it does is it changes its environment around it instead of itself. And to me, that is what being a positive person and having that uplifting spirit is you can be an egg, and you can have this, you know, soft exterior. I keep going backwards with this. You can have this soft exterior, and you can be in an environment that can change you and make you hard and make you kind of shut down and be negative. Or maybe you're this hard potato and you're put into this boiling situation that now makes you soft, and you start thinking maybe I can't do these things. But then if you stay and you remain that coffee bean and you're in a surrounded area of people and you're that positive, you could change everyone around you to be positive too. So the moral of the story is be positive and be a coffee bean. And I love that story more than anything. I tell it to my kids. I've said it to my coworkers at work. And it's an aspect I use in my life a lot, is just be positive, because it can change your environment around you. And when that happens, it's a beautiful thing.
Oh, absolutely. And I I think too, as you know, teachers and mentors and parents, it's super important that when you do get the opportunity to take someone out, you work to meet that person where they are.
Mm-hmm.
I have a lot of fathers, husbands come up to me and they're like, I want to get my girlfriend into hunting. And, I always ask them a couple questions and everything, but I tell them, don't expect her to be you from the get-go.
Mm-hmm.
If she's afraid of the dark, work with her on that. I've walked into plenty of hunts midday and been very successful. Let her taste some success. Let her meet her where she's at her
Mm-hmm.
level. I've had people do that for me, and what a gift that has been. I remember last year going hunting with one of the guys from Nexus, and he's a guide, Brandon Sweeney, out of Pennsylvania. And I was really nervous about hunting with Brandon because, he's young and he's, on the go, and he really knows what he's doing with turkeys. And that morning it was supposed to be super, super cold. And I went to him that night and I said, Brandon, I'm really nervous. It's going to be freezing cold in the morning. I have to carry all these extra clothes, and, and then it's supposed to warm up and get hot. And he looked at me and he kind of laughed. And he's like, look, I'll carry the clothes. Don't worry about it. Just wear whatever you've got to wear to sit there comfortably first thing in the morning. We'll be fine. And it was just the nonchalant way he handled it and said, you know what, whatever it takes, we're going to do it. Don't worry about
Mm-hmm.
it. I've had other guys that hunted with me, and I'm only 5 foot tall. So stepping over trees and over branches and doing all this different stuff, I can't always keep up. They look behind them for me, and they'll slow down. It's those little things that are say, hey, I want you here. I want you to succeed. I'm going to make it happen with you. And
Mm-hmm.
no matter who you're taking out, that's the mindset you need to come from as the person who is helping and teaching and growing somebody outdoors.
Absolutely. Well, Ellen, it has been absolutely wonderful speaking with you. And I love the inspiration that you bring to the outdoors. And I would love for our listeners to be able to find you. So on your social media platforms, where would you like people to go and find you? Or if they have questions, where are some places that they can contact you, or maybe even some of these different educational things that you're doing where people can get involved in with becoming an outdoors woman and wanting to be involved? Where could they find that information?
Well, for becoming an outdoors woman, you can go to your state's Fish and Wildlife page, most likely, and they'll have all that information there. For the state of Kentucky, they have a Facebook page, Kentucky Becoming an Outdoors Woman, and it's also on the website. I am on Facebook. People can reach me through Facebook Messenger. My Facebook page is Jean Ellen, Jean Ellen. I have an Instagram account that I visit here and there. It's called Made to Hunt with the number 2. And I'm not sure I'm around. I'm around everywhere. So they can pretty much find me. But things I do through the state of Kentucky are just scheduled events. So I really encourage people to go to their Fish and Wildlife's website, because they usually have an education tab, and that's where you can find all these really cool programs and things that you can participate in. And for the state of Kentucky, that's where you most likely find me.
Yes. And for our listeners who are in that Kentucky area, I definitely encourage you to get on there, check it out, make contact with Ellen, because she is a very beautiful soul. And I think that a lot of women in your area could really benefit by just tugging your ear a little bit, because I know you're willing to have that conversation with them.
I absolutely am. I tell people all the time, especially when I teach, I have stickers on everything that say, "This is how you get a hold of me." I genuinely mean it. People have given a lot to me, to opportunities, advice. It's kind of like a debt I'm repaying to the heritage and to the people that gave to me.
Yeah. And I think that that's a great way to look at that, is you're there to support everyone else to get out there because you've had so much support to get you there. And I think that that's a really commendable thing for hunters nowadays, to be willing to share that, because there's so many people that are, I don't want to tell you, I'm afraid to tell you what to use or where to go because they're afraid of losing their spot. But in all reality, that's not what's going to happen. Getting more hunters in the outdoors and getting more people educated is something that's going to preserve our conservation for generations to come.
Well, sometimes the littlest helps mean a lot. You may not know what that is at the time. It's just like with being hunting, you got to be flexible.
Oh, absolutely. Well, Ellen, it's been wonderful talking to you. For our listeners that are tuning in and want to get in touch with her, check her out on Facebook, on Instagram, get involved with the Becoming an Outdoors Woman in your state, regardless of what state you're in. If you are interested in getting involved with Women of the Wild, you can find our events on our Facebook, Instagram, on our website at www.womenofthewild.net. We have our annual newsletter that goes out monthly. It's a one-time subscription for the year. It gives you tips and tricks. It gives you some insight on habitat and conservation, recipes. It also gives you free entry for all of our online educational courses. We hold at least one a month, sometimes more, and every single one of those events are free for our newsletter subscribers. We have some insights to when trips are going to be released before they're released to the general public. So it definitely gives you the upper hand. There's promo codes in there. And for this month, I know that we have the Feather Moon Outdoors turkey calls in there, that they have the diaphragms, they have the pot calls. Check them out. The promo code is in there for anyone that's interested. But we look forward to seeing you in the field.